This morning, News 12's Scott McGee is in Boston for us, where the memorial for the victims continue to grow. You can see it behind you. Scott, what can you tell us this morning?
Yeah, Lisa, this just appeared basically over here, and it is an impressive memorial. Just so many messages of peace and hope, and also resilience, as people want to send the message that what happened here on Monday does not represent Boston. They don't want this to change them. They certainly don't want this to end this Boston Marathon that this town is so very proud of. We're also kind of switching on more into the investigative side of this whole thing. You know, yesterday we had on the front page of the Boston Globe this picture of this horrific picture, really, of this young woman who had been so badly injured in that explosion. Well, today on the front page, a grim hunt for answers. You can see that this is really switching into that investigative side of this story. I kind of also want to show you where we are. You know, we're about 3 blocks from where the finish line is here. You can see down this road, this is Boylston. This is where the marathon runners would have been running as the explosions went off. They would have been just a couple hundred yards shy of where those explosions went off, and this has become sort of the place where time stood still. I kind of want to show you this area over here. These are Gatorade cups. This is now 36 hours later. Gatorade cups still here. This place is really kind of stopped, and I'm told by Boston's finest here that are watching this area that it's going to be Friday, Saturday perhaps at least, before this part is opened up again. This is actually a couple of blocks closer than we were yesterday, so we are getting closer, but I'm told that this area is not going to change for a while. Also, a New York connection here where we are. You look over this area and you can see so many members of the media here. That is the New York Port Authority Police Benevolent Association trailer. I'm told they're going to be serving food and drinks out of that area for, it's not clear exactly who they'll be doing that for, whether it's for the Boston police or who, but showing that New York very well represented, reaching out to their brothers and sisters here in Boston. This is such a time of solidarity, so well represented by this memorial here, but things kind of changing, Lisa and Chelsea, as we get a little bit further away from that terrible event. Reporting live in Boston, Scott McGee, News 12.
News 12 Scott McGee continues our Team 12 coverage in Boston this afternoon with more on a growing memorial for the victims.
I'm at what has really become the epicenter of activity, at least for the people of Boston. You know, we're on Boylston Street. This was part of the marathon route, and it's right down here, about 300 yards down that way. That was the finish line. This is where, of course, the bombs rang out Monday afternoon, and so this barricade is as close as we're going to get, and this has become a makeshift memorial here. So many people leaving messages behind. Keep on running, Boston. Stay strong, Boston. A very common theme amongst all of these signs that have been left. Also, a number of interesting items. You see this medal here. Now, it's a big deal to earn one of those medals. You have to finish the 26.2 miles to get it. Someone thought it was important enough to leave that medal behind. Next to that, a rosary, of course. So many messages of part of the spirit here that they want people to know how they feel about it. In fact, part of that, see these yellow flowers here. I just talked to a couple of the young ladies who left those flowers just a minute ago. They were new to this area. They said for them, coming down here was sort of a sense of healing, just to be here and to send the message that Boston is strong and that what has happened here will not stop, certainly not stop the race and not stop the people of Boston. Reporting in Boston, I'm Scott McGee, News 12.
News 12 Scott McGee. He is outside the federal courthouse in Boston tonight with more on what's been going on there all day. Scott.
Janine, this is one of the most extraordinary sights I've ever witnessed here. This is amazing stuff. There are somewhat troubling as well, though. There are hundreds, perhaps as you mentioned, thousands of people in front of this courthouse here in Boston. They are all hoping for just a glimpse of this suspect that may or may not even exist. And it's hard to really appreciate the magnitude of the people from where I'm standing here. We've moved back a little bit. From the air, you can see the numbers of people, and the video that we're showing is actually, it was shot about 3 o'clock this afternoon. At that time, there was reports of a bomb threat to this building, a very large building. A lot of employees work here, and so police ended up evacuating all those employees and then pushing all of the media members, all of the people that were waiting out front, far from the building. So what's also interesting is that in spite of being pushed away, it didn't send anybody home. A lot of people just wanted to stay. They just want to see if this person exists. And of course, in situations like this, Janine, when there is a suspect that's going to be let in, we were told there was just one way in, this one road in. There's going to be if there is a suspect brought here, he will have to, or she will have to be brought on that road. So the question remains, is it going to be a number of trucks, a number of SUVs that go in? Chances are we're not going to see anything other than a very large convoy of vehicles. And although I will say, as the FBI is not saying they have a suspect, there is an awful lot of law enforcement here right now. And if there was nothing going on, it would be a small wonder why I have a SWAT team member with a fully automatic submachine gun right 10 feet from me right now. If there was nothing here, you'd have to wonder why he is here. Reporting in Boston, I'm Scott McGee, News 12.
Scott, let me ask you, what was it like standing outside that courthouse when 1 minute we were hearing all these reports that there was a suspect in custody, and then a few minutes later, no, they've only identified a person from a video, no, there's no name, no, there's no one under arrest. You know, how is this playing into the media crunch that you're seeing outside the courthouse?
Well, of course, in any situation like this, Janine, the media, no one wants to get beat by someone else. So there was frankly no effect on this crowd at all when they said that there was no suspect. Nobody wants to get beat on this story. It is such a huge story. Everyone's standing their ground. At one point, there was just one police officer trying to push all of these people. It wasn't just media, it was citizens too, trying to push in to get as best a view of something that wasn't even there yet. So even the report that there wasn't a suspect didn't have any effect. Everyone's standing their ground, just hoping to get a glimpse of someone that we don't even know exists yet.
All right, Scott, and we know you're standing out there for that reason. We're going to get back to you a little bit later in this half hour, and certainly watching every development very closely for us in Boston. Scott McGee, thank you for that. Well, the sidewalks directly outside the federal courthouse in Boston have been cleared tonight. Hundreds of people had rushed there this afternoon after there were conflicting reports that there may have been arrests in the Boston Marathon terror attacks. But tonight, federal officials say no one has been arrested just yet. They're saying they don't have anyone in custody, but it's believed that a person has been identified from videotape and other evidence at the scene. Now, we want to head right back out to News 12's Scott McGee. He is at the federal courthouse in Boston tonight with more on what's been happening there. Scott.
Janine, and even now, still very little change here at the John Joseph Mowgli Federal Courthouse in Boston. Hundreds of people, perhaps even more, standing outside waiting for a glimpse of this suspect that may or may not appear. We spent most of our day in downtown Boston, where investigators continue to try to piece this case together. A lot of other people are just trying to get to some kind of normal life. It looks and sounds like any normal morning in downtown Boston. Birds singing, joggers running by, clouds glowing in the pre-dawn sun. But reminders of the marathon tragedy linger on the streets and on the minds of commuters.
I was like a little nervous to walk down here. I mean, I know there's police everywhere and it's being taken care of, but walking down here at 5:30 in the morning by myself was a little daunting.
And it turns out Carrie Tuttrup needn't have bothered. Her physical therapy office is behind the barricades and will stay there for a while.
I just asked the police officers and they said probably about 2 more days at least.
But in front of that barricade, designed to keep people out, is a growing memorial designed to lift their spirits up.
I think it's great. I think this is a time when everybody comes together.
When you come down and see the reality of what's transpired, it's you know, you have a heavy heart.
But the flowers, candles, rosary, and especially the notes of encouragement help ease that burden. Some people even leaving behind their hard-earned marathon medals, a clear sign that if the goal of the bombing was to weaken this community, it backfired.
Bostonians, you know, we are one, we are strong, and I think, you know, this kind of signifies how much we care and we're compassionate about one another.
And in fact, there was a news conference scheduled for this evening, but it has been postponed. So, Janine, it remains to be seen how much longer these folks waiting in front of the courthouse will have to wait here if they want a glimpse of this suspect that may or may not exist.
We want to get right to News 12's Scott McGee. He is outside the federal courthouse in Boston tonight with what has been going on there on and off all day. Scott.
Janine, it has been a zoo here this afternoon, although just in the last few minutes, things have started to ease up a little bit. The crowd has begun to disperse. You look over my shoulder, you still see hundreds of people in front of that courthouse. It is not as many as we had before. There were hundreds of not only journalists from, of course, not just across the country, but across the world, but also citizens from across Boston. A lot of people, when they heard that there had been an arrest, they wanted to see this for themselves. Now, earlier today, you can't really get a true feel for what it was like and from the ground. You got to go to the air, and from the air you could see just the huge throng, the masses of people that were just waiting out front. Now, the video you're seeing now was actually shot about 3 o'clock this afternoon. That was just before there was a bomb threat brought in or called in to the courthouse here. They cleared out the courthouse, all the employees. You can see it's a huge courthouse, a lot of people inside, and then moved all of those crowds back. As they moved those crowds back, things were just a zoo. As anytime a vehicle of any kind, particularly a police vehicle, came through, everyone had their iPhones or their cameras trained on it, hoping to see, catch history in some way. But at this point, a lot of people still waiting to see if this suspect that may or may not exist comes in. Now, we do know if there is an arrest and he's brought down to the federal courthouse, because this is an FBI case, he would be or she would be brought here. There's only one road in. It is right in front of that building. So that is why so many people are waiting out front, because they know they'll have to bring him in front. But it'll be easy to tell if that does happen, because there will be an entire battalion of probably dark SUVs bringing in this one or suspect if in fact there was an arrest made today. Janine, back to you.
Scott, let me ask you if you could clarify for us why so much confusion. 1 minute, yes, they have someone in custody, the next minute not. Can you shed any light on that for us?
I think what may be happening here, Janine, is that you have a suspect and and an arrest. So what may have happened is there may be a suspect, there may be pictures. We're hearing that there is some video of this person, so there may be a face to the person that they're looking for, but they may not have this person in custody, and they are mulling over whether they want to bring that person, their name or their identity, out to the public to help arrest them. Generally speaking, law enforcement doesn't want to do that. They want to try to make the arrest first. They only go public if they know they don't have a chance of an arrest without the public's help. So we will have to wait and see if this is a case of a suspect being identified but not yet being put in handcuffs yet.